And I see some laptops open. Why is that? We are a device-free lecture hall.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Yeah. It's very, with the exception, because they're working on their responsibilities for team. So you might say, hey, I've got accommodations, I take notes, I've had, worked better with me. The medical profession told me this is the better thing for me to talk to them. Otherwise, papers.
What if I just take notes on my computer, but I'm not medically told to do so?
Yeah, I did that for years. As a matter of fact, I showed up at MIT with a laptop, and no one had ever seen that before. And I'm sitting there taking notes on my laptop in meetings, in professional meetings. No one had ever seen that before in the 1990s. And I said, no, it's okay. I take notes in my laptop so I can access them. Oh my God, that was such a good theory. Because when you take notes in a device, it doesn't work through the same visual, physical, mental processes as when you do it on physical paper. Strongly recommend physical paper.
I'm so excited. I just got
So, okay, I get it. Writing on paper is better, but I want to, I don't want to carry 5, 6 notebooks around, and I want to be able to have it with me 10 years from now, because what you're teaching us is very valuable. I want to have access to it 10 years. I want to have access to it in the year 2050. Is that okay? Can I take notes in an iPad?
I took notes. If you can take notes on my, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think that works. So taking notes in an iPad, I think that's okay. So thank you for helping us understand the way the 21st century can and should work. I developed some software, and if I kept developing it, it would support taking and accessing notes on the internet, but I'm not that good.
Robert,
Yeah.
the word belligerent is except in English, belligerent.
Yes.
Okay. So I have one request for your students. You have to be more belligerent. Does that exist, that word? You follow me?
Belligerence, you say as a positive thing?
Yeah, it's a positive thing.
Maybe it's persistent.
Yeah. So my point here is that
It's belligerent.
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
So my
belligerent.
point that one of the reasons because we're doing this assignment is because we want you to be more at the top of the list of responsible of this class. So we are number 4. So if we believe that we're saying some rule that could be better, tell to us. We're here. We're open to discuss it. Okay, now we're starting this class. What's the point? I invite group 10 to come to the stage, and we'll be behind now. You will be the leader now.
So we went through everyone's responses and picked out like 4 main categories that everyone's responses seemed to align with. First one, I think this was the most popular response among everyone, was regarding the identification paradox. Can the revitalization occur without triggering justification? And we highlighted some responses from Lauren, how much growth and progression is harmful versus helpful, how things progress too large and too fast, and the consequences of something that's intended to be good leading to adverse effects that are unintended. Good question.
Robert.
Oh,
Yeah, they're working with the.
okay. I'm trying to support. Tell me what to do.
You can just go to the next category.
Okay.
Hopefully you can take them out. You know your files in better than yours.
This is now our Google Doc.
No, I know, but they wrote that. Yeah, I know.
The next topic that we thought, showed up quite often was power and authorship in a public space. Basically, can communities ever fully own the space that they're fighting for? In such a economic and politically powerful country? Some of the responses from, Megan, Lee, Maria, and Kevin. For the most part, it just talks about how the Highline was very community driven, and a lot of the activists wanted to take that piece of land and transform it into something that could serve the public. But in order for that to happen, they have to appeal to people of power and get them to basically agree to it. And typically money plays a big role in that. So for most people of power, in their mind, it was, how can we make money off of this? Not so much the goal of what the community originally wanted for.
One of the other categories we thought of was how can design be imagined to avoid exclusivity? When we were reading the questions, it basically, the pattern was that there's always an opportunity cost. That's understandable, but some of the questions just kind of highlight having like the perfect balance. For example, Kelly, you said, can urban green spaces promote ecology without displacement? It's those two. And then Andresa said, how can we have a balance between ecological and aesthetic and technological innovations, but also preserve social equity, prevent displacement, and yeah.
So the next topic, was course correction, accountability, and Keith and Tyler kind of, created like the base of the questions in this category. I think it was very important to talk about how the Highland was, definitely successful, but, the goal was kind of lost throughout the process, and how the question and category came out from how we would eventually make our way back to the goal that we originally wanted to accomplish. And yeah, so we asked, how do we correct projects that veer from their original community focus?
So, thank you. Can we get this, translate these onto the board? So, can you,
Scroll up.
yeah, scroll up.
Okay.
I think I got the last one, how to stay focused on community. What's that first one? To state it positively, how to ensure inclusion, inclusivity.
The third one, all right?
Okay. And the second one. How to achieve authentic ownership. Is that fair?
Yes.
So this is about the tension between revitalization and gentrification. So can we improve, revitalize without gentrification? Good one.
Can I do it without, like that? Without,
Gentrification.
that's kind of shorthand. Okay, and what questions are left over from last week that we didn't answer?
So you can go 2 weeks to discuss.
Yeah,
that.
group 11.
So we can, I don't remember, but we can go to.
Yeah.
It's in week 11.
So what should happen here is that group 11, said, here's some, group 11 said, here's some questions left at the end. Right, that we didn't really, the lecturers didn't really answer this satisfactorily.
So we discussed that some of them will, that's something that is fun, that is beautiful. Is you know that we will be able to respond to some of these questions in our lectures. Some of them, we need a live to respond to them. So I have to be humble. I'm not sure that I will be able to explain how we can generate hope in a hopeless world without a psychotherapy. So which means that we need to set up expectation to see how we generate hope. I think architecture is hope, generating hope, but it depends on the degree of hopelessness that we feel. So some of these are things that we will discuss again and again during the semester, and requires other disciplines to address, and some of them are things that we will discuss in the seminar, and some of them will be something that we will be addressing during our lectures. Actually, some of today's ones will be addressed in the week where we talk about the spatial democracy. So that is also that happens, that some of these topics are so intertwined. And that's the reason, because it's great that Robert generated this document, because we can come back. We will come back to these questions every Wednesday when we are preparing our lecture for the next day. So I'm not sure that I will be answering some of these questions today, because my lecture is already there. But I promise that I will revisit these questions for my next lectures, and I will try to address some of them. Can I have a reaction about the exercise of today?
Sure.
So I think this group did amazing. Are you agree with me? So it
But
was
they're not
great.
done yet. They're not done yet.
Yeah, did amazing so far. So they have to summarize whatever we discussed and include
So
it
far,
here.
so good.
But in the next session, I want something more. I think the group should be the ones who write the things in the whiteboard. So one of the purpose of the exercise is not only to summarize what we have, but to give you a little more power, a little more power about what is happening in this class. So so I hope that you will be the ones who really leads the session. And if we are, and including everything that Robert and I are doing right now. So there is always a power imbalance between professor and students. And we rarely could hear, and I realize that right now, and they have to say it. And the assembly is not done. You're supposed to lead this power, okay? So this is my recommendation for the next class. So thank you very much. So at the end of the class, you have to revisit this document and be sure that everything that is here for new is. I have a question about that, Robert. Are we updating the main questions week by week, or we are? So because so are we in week 10? We're putting 10 and 11, or we're putting.
No, that'll kill us. But
Okay,
look what happened here.
Okay. You have to put the main question that we generated at the top of the.
Not surprising, a question that came up last week and was articulated at the end of lecture 11
Yeah.
as being, this is still a question. We didn't solve anything. We still have these 5 questions. What voices need to be heard in urban projects? And then this week, they came up with how to achieve authentic ownership. It's kind of
It's similar.
related.
Here it is
These-
same
so
place.
they cluster. So we're gonna have clustering. None of the new questions said, hey, what about my backyard? I want a backyard for my kids to play, in," right? That's not wrong. Don't judge me. Right? So the backyard question is not part of what was generated out of the week 10 discussion, right? But it's still a useful question. The backyard question is still a useful question. So it doesn't clump with any of the new questions, but it hangs over our heads like this, you can answer all these questions. You still got to solve the backyard question. Don't, so we can't afford to drop the ball. Yeah.
Are we just going to be collecting like a large list of questions, or is there ever going to be a time where we try and answer some of these outside?
We are both constantly taking our questions and doing our best to respond effectively to those questions. And I'm confident that some of these questions can be responded to effectively. I'm bold enough to think that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't generate, every response is likely to generate at
Another
least
question.
one new question. So please don't ask for your money back if there are unanswered questions at the end of the semester. That's going to be the case. We claim to be working on developing better questions.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. But that's a big discussion in university, and I love this. That's true, but at the same time, you have to be aware that you're paying not to give to have answers, but to generate questions.
Yeah.
So a good class is not only the one that provide answers, but also to instigate this field in order to generate questions that should be answered in your life career. So we will do our best to respond on some of these questions, but new questions will emerge with me.
And guess the most likely source of effective responses, more effective responses to these questions? Are lectures or what you show up with and present to us on Tuesday? We're hoping it's what you do on Tuesdays. Because remember, what did we say in the first class? If we continue the industrial era model of education, where the best students that come through the program become almost as good as their professors, that's pathetic. You're doomed. We are all doomed. That's not even close to being good enough. We have never faced the kind of problems that you are facing in the 21st century. If you're almost as good as us, what about the hope question? How do we have hope in the face of a hopeless world? The way we have hope, I'll answer that question right now. The way we have hope in the face of a hopeless world is we are on a trampoline and you are bouncing and we're sitting here. There goes Liam. There goes Liam. Okay, here he comes. Ready? Ready? Boom! Boom! And we double bounce Liam up much higher than we could go. Right? So the hope in a hopeless world is that we put energy into that trampoline and you guys go much higher than we ever could have.
I have to say that that's the main reason, because I decided to dedicate more time to teaching them to practice.
Yeah, me too.
Because I have the hope that the new generations can do better. Yeah.
So for discussion number 9, they're adding to a list below this, or are they making a new document or replacing the words there?
That's above this.
It's gonna be above this. So we always
Above
throw
this.
the last week down below, and we bring up things that deserve to be brought up to the top. This is a model for professional practice as well, is you have a historical record of every meeting you've ever had on a project. And the latest discussion is at the top. and things that are resolved, you have a history of it down in.
By the way, this is called master documents in many offices. So Amazon use that, for example.
Yeah.
So
It's
I mean,
just-
the board of them.
It's just a pro move.
Yeah.
And so we keep the most urgent things at the top of the document, but we always have access to the history, so we don't lose track. Because guess what? In week one, we're gonna be asking the question that was already asked in week 6, and we owe it to ourselves and our colleagues in the world. Keep track of that so that we don't keep circling back on the same questions over and over again.
Robert, because this is the second day we do this exercise. So before the moving to the lectures, can we clarify what they have to do?
Yeah,
They're
let's-
missing.
yeah, what do
Really
you-
clear, yeah?
what do they have to do?
Yeah,
Ignacio?
what do you think you have to do after that? Are you clear about that?
Well, what does the assignment say?
Do you remember what the sign said?
Isn't it like we have to reflect on whether we feel that the questions have been solved or?
Well, the way this is written.
Yeah.
We gotta do better job than that. It talks about what's gonna happen in the last 5 minutes of class. You have to get back up here and present. Here are the questions that were not addressed. Here are the questions that were addressed poorly, leading to maybe a sharper question. Here are the things that were addressed that simply reveal more pressing questions. And then some of these questions are really useful moving forward into the analysis work that is your challenge between Thursdays and Tuesdays. Why do we have lectures on Thursdays? Each weekly topic starts at the end of the week, Thursdays. Why is that? Here's why. Because the stuff we do between Tuesdays and Thursdays, we expect you to put in 2 hours of work, doing the reading, doing the discussion post. But the real work of this course is the lecture is just the foundation. The reading and the lecture, that's what the last generation has to offer. Your generation, as a foundational understanding. We're doing the best we can to set up the trampoline on which we're bouncing. And now the big work of this course happens between Thursday and Tuesday, when you go out and you find something that your gut tells you, we have something to learn from this. And then you analyze it, you do the work, you do an authentic, original, fresh analysis of architecture to extract the lessons that you think your colleagues might find useful. And that's the main event of this course. And that's what you're going to do your entire professional life. So we're not waiting to do it. We're doing it now. We're not practicing for the profession. We're doing it. You guys are now design professionals. Welcome to the profession. And here we go.
So which means that at the end of the class, we will do as fast as we can with the lectures, so that you can come here the last 5 minutes and have a little speech about this.
Yeah, give us an update and then update after class.
You update the document.
You update the document with the summary of where we parked this discussion, this struggle, this shared effort.
Okay, let's start. So we have
First,
out of time. Yeah, we were.
oh yeah, we changed that on you, didn't we?
Yeah.
We didn't even talk, I didn't talk about it on Tuesday.
I didn't. Yeah.
When-
Neither.
When you went to sit down and look at the discussion posts, when was that? When did you do that?
This morning.
This morning? Is that okay? Well, no, some of you have class at 8 AM on Thursdays, I hear. We hear.
Correct.
What do you have?
My elective.
It's called an elective. That means it's optional. You don't have to really do it.
Well, it's impact.
I wouldn't say that, and I wouldn't think it for a second. I refuse to teach an elective because students tell me, oh, no, it's an elective. I don't have to do the work for you. It's like, and what?
So you like the course?
No, you elect the course and then it's a commitment. It's the same as this course. It's 4 credits,
Yeah,
right?
but
It's the same 4 credits.
yeah.
So
but
it doesn't work to do it in the morning.
So-
So we need to get the discussion due. You know what would be best? if I were a student, I would want the reading available over the weekend. I have more time on the weekend. You know, it's a little more chill. Right? I'm still busy on the weekend, right? And I don't, you guys, you teachers, you think we work 7 days a week. We don't. We have families, we have relationships, we have jobs, we have homes, we have housemates, we have obligations. But I'm working on the weekend, but like on Sunday, when I wake up, have my coffee, I can skim or listen to my phone read to me the reading and get a sense of it. And then I know where to dig in and I can make better use of the 2 hours. You know, between Tuesday and Thursday, it's hopeless, right? Who's with me? Between Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's no time for this. So maybe the weekend is a better place for me to personally move my work for the reading.
So you say that during the weekend, I'm confused.
No, it's available. It's just a serving suggestion. I'm a student. I can choose to do this whenever I want. I don't have to wait.
Yeah, but when
Wednesday
is
night.
what is the deadline for the discussion?
So when is the deadline for the discussion first? And it has to be early enough so that team 9 can do it. Who's team 9? Okay, team 9, when do you want the discussion posts to be in and done?
That's a good way. Yeah. What do you want? What do you think is fair for everyone to have a discussion? Right?
I mean, if the reading is given in advance over the weekend, then we could probably just have it due by Wednesday. That's.
I hereby give you all the readings for the entire semester.
It's already there. The readings for the fall semester they are already
They're
available.
already available. No secrets. So when should the discussion be due?
Well, no.
Wait, but wait.
Because I'm good at BSing.
Afternoon on Wednesday, so we can do it.
Okay, we need an exact time, not afternoon.
I do agree with by
No,
the
noon is 12, not afternoon.
Like, yeah, like.
Okay, so that noon, well, yeah.
what is the agreement?
Do it on Wednesday?
Noon on Wednesday.
Right.
So, sorry? Tuesday midnight, you say? No? Wednesday, what about Wednesday midnight?
No.
That's the problem.
I'd like what it was, but like we didn't realize it was due at Wednesday, yesterday at 9:30.
Yeah.
Wednesday, like 3.
Here there is a comment saying that they like Wednesday 8 p.m. as it is.
Wednesday, yeah,
Does it say 9? Sorry, Wednesday 9 p.m. as it is.
Wednesday night, yeah.
That just wasn't right.
Is that okay, Wednesday night? Yeah.
I'll do this shit on.
Okay, group 9. You
Okay,
with that?
here they are proposing 7 or 8 instead of 9.
Why are we going earlier? Why are we doing earlier? So you guys hide or something.
I'll settle a date.
Okay, let's do something. We have to move forward. We're gonna have time to do the lecture. So, wait, Allison?
I was say, like, from having done this, it really doesn't take that long.
It does.
It doesn't take long at all. I looked at it at 7 this morning. I was done by 7:30.
Well, you're special.
Thanks.
Okay,
It took me like 3 hours last week.
yeah, because you are not that smart. Yeah. Like compared to Allison.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. We're not that
It's
smart.
true.
Yeah, so, okay, I want to do a motion to have the readings ready by Wednesday, 8 p.m. Second, okay, let's vote. Who wants to agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, who disagree? Any abstention? It's approved. Wednesday, 9 a.m. 9 p.m., sorry. Wednesday, 9 p.m. So you will have, so Wednesday, 9 p.m. means that the group that will do what's the point will have or the night of Wednesday or the morning of Thursday to do this summarizing of questions. I need to say that it took 3 hours. Imagine that we're not that hard to take 90 minutes.
The vote was for 8 PM, not 9 PM.
No, it's for 9.
Was it for 9?
Oh my gosh.
Because like we already.
We can change it next week.
Sorry.
Are we talking about the things on the board at all, or are we going into the lecture?
No, we're using the lectures to discuss it.
Yeah, so we can, let's see how it goes and we can change it next week if you want. Okay, so here are the questions, and here's the lecture. Are you okay, Joe?
No, yeah,
You okay? David?
I'm having a hard attack. It's okay. Let's go.
No, but Jamie, just answer that question. So this week starts today and finishes Tuesday. Which means, and this today is more lecture based and Tuesday are more seminar based. So which means that we will be lecturing today, having some foundations, and then we will continue with this discussion today. So I know that you want to talk about this, and thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah.
So I put something on the screen in January 2023. 24. And I reminded you of it last week. It said project system culture, or project system culture. Remember that? And it's putting forward a hypothesis that it used to be that the culture determines the operating system, and the operating system tells the architects what to do, and the architects obey that. And the architects have no authority, no agency, no ability to impact the operating system. That's how we used to do things. It hasn't turned out so well. So the working hypothesis that I'm presenting to you constantly in everything I say is that sometimes an architectural design project on a specific parcel, or even smaller than that, can have an impact on the larger operating system, mainly by opening up previously unimagined possibilities. Okay, so projects, designers can open up possibilities through the work that we do. And that is at the core of how, what can design do? What can design do? On a good day, it's a good building. Design can make a good building. On a great day, designs can open up new possibilities for changes to the operating system that controls everything. It underlines everything. So in order to access that, we have to start to be able to see the operating system. We have to understand, oh, that's an operating system. This thing we just did in this class, oh, that's an operating system. We voted by majority rules. That's an operating system. What's one of the results of an operating system? And that is where the rule is majority rules. One of the outcomes of majority rules operating system is that you can incite someone. You can say, Jimmy, shut up, Jimmy, you're a jerk. No one here is named Jimmy, right? Okay. No, I do that. In a majority rules operating system, there's a payoff, there's an incentive to say, shut up, Jimmy. No one wants to hear from you, right? Because I don't need Jimmy's vote. All I need is majority. So I can be insulting and I can put down and I can denigrate. And if you get rid of the free press, I can also lie about you, right? So there are consequences to the rules of the operating system. If, like the Dutch flood system, you can't afford to insult one of the farmers that is controlling the dikes, then you can't afford to insult Jimmy. You need to reach consensus. You need all 12 farmers to say, okay, I'll go along with that. It may not be the thing I would have decided, but I'll go along with it. We did this by a vote. I would have preferred, and I hope we do, if we change anything, I hope we do it by consensus. Because we don't want to leave anyone out. We want to try a new operating system. What is this I'm doing here? This is game theory. So the challenge I'm posing to you is how do you see the rules of the operating system embedded in architectural design? You with me? Is that okay? So let's start out with pure game theory. Have you heard of the prisoner's dilemma? You may have heard of the prisoner's dilemma, but you may not remember what it is. It's a famous thought experiment, and it goes something like this. Let's hope the video works.
Red have each been arrested for some minor crime. The police think they committed a more serious crime, but they don't have enough evidence to convict them. They need a confession. They take them and put them in separate rooms so they can't talk and play a little game. To try to force a confession, the police give them each a choice. Admit your partner committed the crime and you will go free. We'll pardon you for the minor crime, but your partner will have to spend 3 years in prison. If you stay silent and your partner lets us know that you were the one who really did it, then you're gonna have to go away for 3 years. They know that the police don't have any evidence, and if they both stay silent, then they will only go to prison 1 year each for the minor crime. If they both betray each other, then they'll both go to prison for 2 years each. Okay, each partner can do one of two things: stay silent or betray. Staying silent would be cooperating and betraying would be defective. If they both stay silent, then they each spend a year in prison. If one betrays and the other stays silent, then the betrayer goes free and the silent spends 3 years in prison. If they both betray, then it's 2 years each. So what are they gonna do? Well, they should cooperate. That's the best option for the group if we add the total number of years in prison. But let's take it from Red's perspective. If she thinks Blue is gonna stay silent, then she should betray so she can go free. Going free is better than spending a year in prison. If she thinks he's gonna betray her, then she should definitely betray. 2 years in jail is better than 3 and being made a fool of. Blue is in the exact same situation and will think the exact same thing. He should betray if she stays silent, and he should betray if she betrays. They should have both cooperated, but from an individual standpoint, they noticed they could always gain by defecting if they have no control over what the other person's gonna do. So they'll both defect to try to better their own situation, but come away not only hurting the group, but themselves. Individually, they're worse off than if they both cooperated. This situation is pretty made up, but it has some real world.
So you get it? It's complex. But basically, because of the rules of this operating system, there is an incentive to betraying the other individual. One of the assumptions of this is that the individuals are isolated decision makers. They can't talk to each other. They can't collaborate. They can't reach consensus. They can't even vote on it, right? They're kept away from each other. And so that structures the decision space, which is a term I want to be able to use. This is a structured decision space that almost guarantees a specific outcome. And that specific outcome is the worst possible outcome. You with me so far? So this is setting up a challenge for us as architects to see the operating systems embedded in our physical design form. And we're going to continue this questioning, this line of questioning all semester. In week 6, we're going to say, okay, how many of you drive? And we'll figure out, why do Americans drive more than anyone else in the world? And what I believe we will find out is that our physical environment is a structured decision space. This is another verb. Our decision spaces are structured in a way that defines the rules of the game. The decision space of North American cities is structured to have individuals make individual decisions and choices to drive. The outcome is determined not by whether the person hates the planet or not. The outcome is determined by something much simpler and deeply ingrained. It'll either take me an hour and a half to get to Wentworth this morning in the rain, standing outside, or I can do it in 45 minutes, maybe an hour in traffic. Even if the traffic is horrible, I'm still have more time to sleep. You know, so our decision spaces are structured by the physical world that we've constructed. And so this is an analogy that helps us know what to look for in the world. So how does this play out? Here's
You
another
each have a golden ball with the word split written inside. You each have a golden ball with the word steel written inside. I will ask you in a moment to choose either the split or the steel. If you both choose the split ball, you will split today's jackpot of £40,015 and you will go home, each of you, with £20,007.50. If one of you chooses split and the other one chooses steel, whoever chooses the split ball goes home with nothing. But whoever chooses the steel ball goes home with the whole £40,015. There's the rub. You both choose the steel ball, you both go home with nothing. Rub.
You get it? It's similar to the prisoner's dilemma in that they as individuals are given this structure, and they, as they understand the structure, they have to decide what's the right outcome. And the game says the right outcome is for them both to say split. But I hate being made to feel like a fool. I hate it when people make a fool out of me. I will do anything in my power to prevent that from ever happening again. Remember what Jimmy did to you back in 4th grade? Never again, Jimmy. Right? God damn it. I'm not going to be made a fool of ever again. It hurt.
We have come such a long way together. I brought you through, you brought me through, so we're both equals. 20,000, which is half, is more than I thought I would go away with today. So I am more than happy to split with you if I can trust you to do the same with me. Oh, I guaranteed you, I can shake on it now, I guaranteed you at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
You took me through that round, I would split, and I still intend to split with you.
What I'm going to say to you is, I had my cards read and I was told if I play fair, I will come away with a substantial amount of money. I'm going to look into your eyes.
What are you laughing
I'm
at?
asked to make a decision.
Oh, you watched it?
If I look into your eyes and I see that you're genuine, you're going to split that money with
Look at that. Look at his face.
I will make the same decision. Can't be more straightforward and honest than that.
So here's the part where you try to cooperate. Oh, you can trust me. Everything's fine. What do you think's going to happen?
Someone will betray you.
Someone's going to betray. Are they both going to betray? Who's going to betray?
Leave it for the good man.
Good man, that's a good man.
Okay.
Those ways to reveal the split ball, I can't really explain how I felt. I was just so
Aww.
Having lost over £20,000, I'm speechless. I don't even know how to put it into words. It's a life-changing amount of money that I just had in my hands and lost within seconds of getting it.
At the end of the day, if you can bluff your way to £40,000, you deserve that money.
If you can bluff your way to £40,000, you deserve that money. Are you disappointed? Who do you feel the most negatively about? Her? What a chump. Or him? What a jerk. Who feels worse about her? Okay, who feels angry at this guy? Okay. You have a question? Okay. Okay, let's do this again. Let's introduce the idea, okay, believe it or not, right? Someone thought you could do this week 1, and then in week 2, you could do it again. And then you could do it season after season, week after week. And it's entertaining, right? I watched, this is the only one I've ever watched. I get it. I could go on there and I could do what he did. And I can earn that £40,000. So now let's introduce a new thing. Knowing the operating system, what options do we have available to us? Are we simply, this is an analogy for the world. Now that we understand how the world works, do we have any options whatsoever? What can individuals do? That was last week's question that Keith asked. What can an individual do? Right? Nothing. There's nothing an individual can do. Or is there? This is gaming the system.
I want you to, trust me, 100% I'm going to pick the steel ball. Sorry, I'm going to choose the steel ball. I want you to do split, and I promise you that I will split the money with you.
Steel.
Yeah,
You're gonna take steel.
yeah,
I'm gonna take split.
yeah,
So you take the money.
and I will split it with you.
After the show.
Yeah.
You saw this in two, Justin? You're gonna like it.
that. If you do steel, we both walk away with nothing. I'm telling you, 100% I'm going to do it.
I appreciate that.
Right, I'll give you another alternative.
Why don't we just both pick split?
I'm not going to pick split. I'm going to steal. You can honestly 100% going to steal.
See what I like steal.
No, I'm honest, and I'm going to tell you. I know that's why I'm telling you I'm going to steal. If you do split, then I will split the money.
I can't see myself doing that.
Okay, well I'm going to steal, so I'm going to leave with nothing.
Where is your brains coming from? I can't work out.
I know that I'm a decent guy, and I will split the money with you.
Well, we should just both split then.
No, I'm going to do steal.
There is no, I know there is him. If you the money.
He's panicking. This is the end of the show. This works.
Okay.
My father once said to me.
This is the pre-prepared speech.
Not man. It's not worth nothing. Not worth a dollar.
I agree. So even though I'm going to steal, so you've got a choice. You're going to steal, and we both walk away with nothing, because you know I've told you my intention, and I've told you that I will split the money with you, Abraham.
If I gave my word I was going to split, I would split. And you're going to take steel.
What do you, okay, you got it? Okay, let's just keep moving. Let's see what happens.
Nonsense.
We walked away with no money because you're an idiot.
No, that's not.
There's no longer an incentive to be nice. And this, the system, the operating system is determining this.
Split or steal?
He was lying the whole time. Okay, I love this part. Hardest money I've ever had to work for.
Don't get money. I'm going to buy an oven, and I think me and my friends are going to Australia.
Bring me the money offline. I think I'll respray my yacht.
See that? He's gonna repaint his yacht. This is the hardest $40,000 or for 20,000 pounds he's ever earned. He's gonna repaint his yacht. And look at this, the face. Okay. So you get it? It's not so much the ethics. I drove today, not because I'm a bad person. No, don't be so judgy, right? I drove today because of the incentive structure, because of the decision space, the structure of my decision space determined, even if I didn't drive today, which I didn't, but if I had, it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because the incentive structure, the decision space that we find ourselves in here in North America, doesn't absolutely determine the outcome, but in aggregate, if we have 100 people, how many of those 100 people are going to drive to Wentworth versus some other means? 73. 73 of the 100 people are going to drive, not because they're bad people. It has to do with the structure, the financial, physical structure of the Boston area. I can't afford to live close enough to walk. I can't afford to live close enough to a transit station. I have no choice.
I was gonna say that I think that they don't do it because of the incentive structure, but because it's more convenient. But then you said I can't afford to live close enough to walk. And then walking would be even more convenient. So I guess if the incentive structure was remade so that it was work was in walkable into walkable distance, then that would be more convenient.
Well,
So
it's a big structure. It has to do with housing costs. And we're gonna spend a week anticipating how much money you're gonna make when you graduate, how much student loan debt you're gonna have, how much money in your monthly budget for housing, and where you're gonna live in, and how far are you gonna drive from. This gets personal. That's what we're gonna do, because we need to figure this out. Okay, how'd we get there? Okay, let's look at one example. I have 3 examples lined up, but I'm just gonna look at one because it feels more effective to go through this more methodically, like we are. Like I've never indulged this topic this deeply. I kind of feel like you understand the prisoner's dilemma. You understand the money ball, golden ball, organized operating system, and how it determines outcomes. And in this one case, one very sharp player figured out how to game the system to achieve a different outcome than the likeliest outcome. And when we're talking about how do you reduce greenhouse gas emissions, what's the biggest single source? Some people say it's buildings. I'm skeptical. I think it has to do with the personal transportation sources to get to those buildings, to and from those buildings. And so how do you switch the operating system so that it yields more beneficial outcomes than the current operating system? And so here's some examples. There's, let's go to Brazil. And what city in Brazil do we always want to talk about? Brasilia, right? We're always talking about Brasilia. Well, Brasilia, beautiful. Brasilia is beautiful, right? But Brasilia, in a way, is a poster child for the negative operating system of the 20th century. If you live in the city, if you live in Brasilia, who's lived in Brasilia? Who's visited Brasilia? We have some, okay. If when you visited Brasilia, did you walk around places? Not Brasilia, it's a driving environment. So that is an operating system. Brasilia is an operating system. Cities like Brasilia, Chandigarh, and by extension, every city in the world that developed and grew during the 20th century, according to the dominant 20th century model of urban expansion, it is a physicalization baked into the fabric of the planet's surface that is an operating system that favors certain outcomes. So let's not go to Brasilia for a positive example. Let's go to Curitiba. Who's been to Curitiba? And okay, let's look at Curitiba.
Thanks to the Green Exchange program, Curitiba says it recycles 70% of its garbage, and the exchange has served as a model for other cities to copy. It's a good example of a project that creates a scenario where everybody wins. Paulo Cabral, CGTN, Curitiba, Brazil.
So what is this system? Okay, we're not yet talking about design, physical things. This is the design of a social program. We have a lot of garbage. We have a problem of a lot of garbage, and we need to clean it up. We also have a problem of food insecurity. We need to feed people. And we also have a third problem of an agricultural surplus. Our farmers, our farmers need markets for their produce so that it doesn't rot on the shelves, so they can move the produce, so they can increase the demand in order to push the operating system that is capitalism and markets, so that they can increase there's enough demand, there's enough scarcity for their vegetables, but the price goes up, and they can make a living, they can afford to plant it. So the overarching operating system of capitalism is another thing that should be hovering over our heads this entire semester and your entire careers. And it's not hopeless. There is signs of hope, and this is one of them. By saying to people, you bring me a kilogram of garbage, I will give you a kilogram of vegetables. Simple, right? So all of a sudden you have people collecting garbage, bringing it in bags to these trucks, and they're going away with vegetables. 10 kilograms of garbage, 10 kilograms of vegetables. That can feed my family for a week. Jobs are scarce and they don't pay enough to pay for all that produce. This is a great deal. So they didn't change much. They just initiated this one program. Who did this? Jaime Lerner was an architect in Brazil. He and his pals, when they were in college, entered a competition for the redesign of the city of Curitiba. They lost. But they thought that it was a good idea. So what you're going to do when you lose the competition and you think it was a good idea? Well, most of us, we just walk away, right? That's what I did. But that's not what they did. He ran for mayor. He's an architect who ran for mayor. And when he was elected, he did these changes. This is one of them. What else did he do? Like every city in the world in the 1960s, they were facing problems. Okay, it used to be that only 1% of the population of Curitiba had a car. But oh my God, what are we going to do now? 5% of the population of Curitiba, 5% of households have a car. This is really crazy. We need to modernize. How do we modernize when there's not enough parking and there's traffic jams? What do?
Build more infrastructure.
You build more infrastructure. You widen the roads. You create highways and you make more parking, right? Problem solved. We don't have time to go into it, but it's not that simple. We will go into it in week 6. So problem solved. Well, part of their urban plan was to do the opposite, because even in the 60s, we already knew if you increase the capacity for parking, more people will drive. If you reduce the traffic, if you widen the streets, more people will drive. It's called induced demand. The first freeways were built in the 1930s. Let's say 1934, you can say the Pasadena freeway outside of LA. And 6 months later, you already had engineers saying, "Well, I don't understand what just happened. We built this beautiful state-of-the-art freeway in LA. And we had the same traffic congestion 6 months after we built it as we had before we built it." Then they came up with a theory. It's called induced demand. So by January of 1935, we knew what it was. We know how this works. We know what to expect every time you add a lane. But you can look back in the engineering literature, and every 10 years or so, an engineer will publish something claiming to have discovered this idea. And they will call it induced demand, they will call it something else. But they discover it, and then it's buried. And they discover it again, and it's buried. And they discover it again, and it's buried. Here we are, 90 years after the first documented case of induced demand that I can find. We still think that the solution to not enough parking is more parking, and not enough road space, more road space. Except in New York City, where we recently put in traffic congestion pricing, and it has been a miraculous operating system change. Very, very successful. So what did Jaime Lerner do? He said, I'm going to pedestrianize the main shopping street. I'm going to do one block. And the local merchant said, hey, that's going to kill our business. Does this sound familiar? City of Cambridge is going through the exact same thing now. How many years later? 60, 70 years later? The City of Cambridge is saying, we're going to take away 100 parking spots along a 6-mile stretch of Mass Ave. We're going to put in a bicycle lane. And the merchants are saying, oh, that's going to hurt our business. Well, it's the same story in 1960s in Curitiba. And they had a petition and they wanted to stop the mayor from doing this. So what did he do? He gamed the system. He said, okay, it's 4:45 on a Friday afternoon. And he assembled an army of municipal workers. And they went out and they started doing the pedestrian transformation of this one block of the main street. The merchants noticed this and they gamed the system in their own way. They said, okay, everybody, we're going to have an automobile rally on Saturday morning, and we're going to drive down Main Street over and over again so that these municipal workers cannot pedestrianize the street. So Jaime Lerner gamed their game and said, okay, let's have a children's drawing contest. And so they lined up the children of the city in that block so that the drivers couldn't drive through. And by Monday morning, they had one block of a pedestrian shopping street, no cars in the middle of the main street of Curitiba. So what do you think happened next? It's still there, by the way, right? You saw it when you went, right? It's still there. It's right at the center of the city. It's been extended to be like 8 blocks now. And the merchants were so thrilled after the first week because their profits went up. Because when you get rid of the cars and you make the same space available for people, how many people can fit in this space when it's filled with cars? 112, something like that. How many people can fit in this space when there's no cars? More. Make up a number. Make up a 4-digit number. That's how many. A lot more. And a lot more people, that's a lot more customers, and that's more money. So the demonstration effect, there's a 4th term that we're going to be using all semester and all your career, the demonstration effect. By demonstrating the benefits, you change the way the mental component of the operating system. One of the key components of every operating system is between our ears. The way our brains, the habituation of our brains are habituated, they're conditioned to think a certain way. The demonstration effect is what changes that. And Jaime Lerner says, if you want creativity, cut 1 zero out of the budget. If you want sustainability, cut 2 zeros out of the budget. Have you heard of bus rapid transit? You heard of it? Is there one nearby? Is there one in Boston? The Silver Line is bus rapid transit. Bus rapid transit was invented by Jaime Lerner in the 1970s. They didn't have the money for a subway system. They didn't even have the money for a light rail system. But so instead, they used the money for buses. But the buses can't carry enough people to make a difference. So they invented the articulated bus. But even with articulated buses, it takes too long to get people on and off. You've been on a bus, right? Most of you have been on a bus before in your life. It takes so long for people to Bing, oh, I don't have a quarter, bing, it takes so long, I gotta get to class, I'm gonna be late. Right? So he created the boarding tubes. Jaime Lerner invented the boarding tube so that you could enter the boarding tube and pay your fare when you entered the tube. Then all the doors on the bus open up and people come off and people get on just like a subway. So it's as fast as a subway. They've gotten to the point where the buses are coming how long does it, what's the time between buses in Boston?
And varies. A lot.
Like 25 minutes or 15 minutes or 10 minutes, but no faster than 10 minutes. And what happens? Well, there's 6 number 1 buses lined up and they all come at the same time. And then you have 40 minutes with no number 1 buses, right? So they are not like that. They're very disciplined and they come every 60 seconds. So they're actually able to carry more people than a light rail system for 1/10 the cost or less, and 1/100th the cost of a subway system. No time for that. So we could use this same lens. This is the vocabulary. We could use that same vocabulary that gives us a methodology for looking at, analyzing other examples. And we could look at examples in Barcelona. Barcelona's going to be with us all semester. I'm going to skip Barcelona, blah, blah. And then we can look at Medellin, Colombia. We could take another look at Medellin, Colombia, and we could look at the decision space, the structure of the decision space, how Sergio Fajardo gained the system, and how the library parks created a demonstration effect. Let's just do a really quick one. Oh, I'm done.
I can summarize.
So here he is in Watson Hall, and what he's explaining in Watson Hall, when he stepped down from there, he came to Wentworth. And he said, here's what we did, is we turned it from fear to hope. How to keep hope alive in a hopeless world? It's the hope question. Here's how he did it. Instead of continuing the same operating system where $900 million of funding coming from utility, the selling of electricity overseas, because they have this huge hydroelectric capacity. It's owned by the city of Medellin. 10% of the annual profits are supposed to go to construct services and support services for the population of Medellin. But for decades, the politicians, what do they do with the 900, let's call it 900 million US dollars? They pocketed it. Because the operating system was, here's a basket of money, it's coming by here. Jimmy's gonna take it all. If you pass it to Jimmy, Jimmy's gonna take a huge amount. If you don't take it, he's gonna take it. Well, I want to send my kids to college in the United States. So either I watch Jimmy's children go to Wentworth in the United States, or I'm gonna send my kids to Wentworth. So the operating system incentivized stealing money in the budget. Sergio Fajardo ran on a platform of we're not going to steal a penny, we're going to spend that money for the people of Medellin. And okay, so far so good. That makes him the same as every other mayor that ever ran for election anywhere. The difference is he didn't steal the money. Okay, so far so good. Then once he has that money, he's going to spend it on the people. Well, we know what that means. You're going to make fancy schools, fancy infrastructure for the fancy people who are the supporters of your political party. We know how this goes. What did he do? He gamed the system and he said, okay, wealthy people, you've had a great run, but what's the worst problem in your life? And they all said, death, crime, the murder rate. We can't live here. And so he gamed the system. He said, okay, why don't we just push pause on the luxury infrastructure and the security guards for your fancy neighborhoods? Let's push pause on all that and let's build some of that fancy infrastructure for not the next, not the upper middle class, the next group in line, not the middle class, not even the working poor, but the people who are the greatest victims of all the drug wars. So we went to the bottom, the very bottom, the greatest point of misery in society, and he gave them state-of-the-art architecture, infrastructure, services. It's like Curitiba, and it's like Barcelona. They gave the highest quality design and services to those who had historically been most left behind.
Would you say that counts as gentrification, considering it's now a tourist destination?
Yes, it has had gentrifying effects.
Okay.
I mean, I moved my family there. So yeah, we lived in a very nice place. But there's only so much gentrification that can happen in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so it's very limited. It has, the biggest story is in Rio de Janeiro, in Rocinha, the informal settlement.
So, yeah, I don't have the why that happens, but the data says that for some reason, this project didn't produce the.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the examples that provides development to underdeveloped areas with limited to no gentrification. But what about this project does that? Because I don't see how it discerns from other developments.
I think the key factor is this is a tightly knit community. They built their own housing there, and it's still dangerous. It's not an attractive place. When I moved my family there, we didn't move here. And I'm someone who used to live in an informal settlement for 4 years. I lived in an informal settlement by choice. And I didn't want to live here.
I was just gonna say to like kind of answer everyone's question, I think it's more like gentrification is such a large problem in the Americas because there's a really large like middle class who has the money to sort of take over.
It's not the middle, it's super wealthy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in more South American countries, the middle class just isn't as large.
Yeah.
So there's less people to sort of take over.
Yeah. So I think I'm just gonna say one last thing. Fajardo only had 4 years in power, but he had to demonstrate. Wasn't enough for him to say, I'm not gonna steal the money. He had to demonstrate that he wasn't gonna steal the money. He had to demonstrate that he was going to take that money and instead of giving it to the wealthy people of Medellin, to make sure it helped the lives of the people who needed it most. And so it had a demonstration effect. So Fajardo wasn't elected next, but Gravaria was the same part of the same political party. And if you're looking for hints on where to look for analysis examples, I put this in the slides. These slides are available to you. Here's a map of Medellin, Colombia. Here's a list. It's not, I think you can see it better when you open up the slides in your laptop. There are 6 library parks documented. There have been many more since then, and they're available. And just a note on the diagram, a book has been going around. This is a book that we say is required for the course, but we know you can't, we know you don't buy books. But if you could steal this book or get the PDF or buy it, not this one.
The one that is, there's 100 things down there.
Yeah, 101 things. Did you see this? This has a series of diagrams that are abstracted from real world examples. We're asking you to do a similar thing. First, abstract it in place in your analysis project. Then in class, we're gonna add an exercise in class, talk about how those specific examples might be translated into general principles and useful approaches captured in diagrams that you can carry forward with you and have it in your iPad as you approach the problems in your careers and have the diagrams that you generated way back in 2025 at that school you went to. Okay, so there's a few things like that. Okay.
Thank you. So if, can you pass the baton?
Yes.
Which is the book? This is the baton. So I have, before then, starting my I'm gonna spend only 15 minutes. So I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to the team to summarize the questions. So, but if I have one reaction about the diagram that you did in the analysis, it's many of them were so project specific. And we're trying to find here some diagrams that can be applied to different things. Italo Calvino saying, the city exists because the city repeats and repeats and repeats again across the world. So the city at the end repeats a gesture again and again and again and again and again. And that is the reason, because when we study Medellin, even if it's different, we can apply some of the principles in Boston or in other places. So we're trying to do with this diagram, that's the reason, because this book is a really good examples, is trying to understand what are the principles behind these examples and create a diagram, not about the how they did it with the project, but about the principles that they generated. So let me talk about access. So I don't have time to move through the whole presentation. The presentation includes several bibliography that explain in detail why access is that important. At the end, many of the things that Robert was discussing about how we can improve the city, in the case of Curitiba or Medellin, is to basically democratize, make access more democratic. So one of the key to have more inclusive, to focus on community or have more, or to ensure inclusivity is to provide access to everyone. And trying to connect this with how the system operates. One of the things that I realized when Robert was saying that it's not about much about the ethic, but about how to incentivize the structure. So there is the feeling. No, I don't. It's not the feeling. So there is something that is happening there, that we always evaluate everything according to cost and benefits. So we always evaluate in this system, in this operating system, we evaluate everything according to cost and benefits. So the cost of going inside the box is so long, is not that good for the benefit that I will have to save the planet. So we're always moving through across to cost and benefits. And one of the things that Sergio Fajardo achieved is that he increased the cost of crime. So when there is more beneficial to create projects for underprivileged communities, even if that money didn't go to my neighborhood, because they will have some other benefits that are not the same, because they increase the cost of crime. So, and I have another example. There is a book called The Triumph of the City. I have to write that because I want you to look at this book. It should be mandatory.
Edwin Glazer.
Yeah.
Ed Glazer.
Ed Glazer, of The Triumph of the City, by Ed Glazer, professor in law of the Harvard Law School. He said that one of the issues with cars, and one of the problems with car and the car-based urbanism, is that we evaluate pedestrian and cars through cost and benefits. So the benefits that I will have of having a car, the speed that I can have, and the infrastructure that I have to go to everywhere is so beneficial. And the cost of a car is so slow, it's so low, it's really low. So how much is a car? How much it costs a car?
It's $9,000 a year, all in.
$9,000.
$9,000 a year.
It's $9,000 a year. So if you calculate the
average.
cost of the car, including the insurance, including the
Gas,
the
repairs.
gas and the maintenance of that car, it's
Parking.
$9,000 a year. It's really small. But what he said that if you include in the cost of the car the amount of reparation that we will need to do in the environment because of that car, probably the cost won't be that big. I will think probably the benefit that I will have to operate a car doesn't deserve that cost. So that is the reason, because in this operating system, there are many countries that are using this carbon taxes, that if you include carbon taxes to the products, and you say the car have a carbon taxes, so I will calculate the amount of money that I will have to expend to reparate the climate, and I will include that in the cost of the car. And then probably having this balance between cost and benefit will really calculate the cost, or probably if we calculate, so we never include in the cost of the car things like access. So we know that we need to have long distances to use the car to go to the suburbs very far away. But we are not paying this highway with the car. That is paid by others or by the taxes in general. If we calculate the cost of the highway per car, probably the car will be that beneficial. So, and if we calculate the amount that others have to spend having this distance in the cost of the car, probably the cost won't be that benefits. It's basically a relationship between cost and benefit. So access, what it's a framework. Let me go to the next one. Based on a concept called adding a new right that could increase the cost of having car-based cities. Is the right to the city. Is understanding that everybody deserves the right to the city. That is this concept created by Henry Lefebvre. Henry Lefebvre created this concept that based in that book that basically start with a set of let me go back for a second because I don't have time to go to the history. So, but basically he said that we are in cities because we want to access to opportunities. That is the reason because cities exist. So cities exist because we want to access to several things. I will say that last week. Cities are hotspots of creativity, hotspot of art production, hotspot of knowledge production, hotspots of loves. You can have more passion, more love, more desires, more friends in cities. So cities provides us access to many places. So what he's saying is that access is the key that can connect people with feelings, and everybody have the right to that city. So everybody have the right, and every community have this the self right to be included in the city. So that trend started in 1968. 1968 is the day of the biggest amount of protest, and it's a time where in 1968 we have Tlatelolco protest, we have Vietnam War protest, the first process of women liberations, the beginning of Black Panthers, the Black Lives Matter movement started in 1968, and in 1968 was a French maid. You can Google how that was important. And that moment, there was a big change in architecture. So that year, 1 year after 1968, these 3 books were published. Please raise your hand and tell me what the covers of these books have in common. It's really evident.
A person.
What else?
Inside the house.
Yeah. A person in an environment. So basically, and you can see that these three books were written in different places across the world. No internet. They didn't know that they were publishing that. And it's the first time in the history of architecture that 3 different authors in 1969, 1 year after this protest, they published these 3 books saying that, hey, people are important. So it was the first time that we understood that we are building cities, not because infrastructure, but because infrastructure is a tool, is a structure to provide access to the people. So 1969 was the moment where this movement started. I will come back to that later. And that year, Henry Lefebvre produced this book about the importance of provide access, and it's a concept that basically try to introduce justice in the city in order to, as a key to change the system to include more people in the benefits of that the city has. So if you have time, you will read this presentation and look at this theory and some example about how this theory creates the conceptualization of access that basically connects 3 types of justice. How we distribute resources across the city, which is a design decision. How we have procedural justice, how we make programs that have more justice in the city, and how we recognize the needs of everyone as a restorative justice in the city. So, and at the end, I highly recommend you to read this. It's a website called Design For City.org. But basically, it's a city that creates an index of several things, factual things that we can do to gain assistance and to provide more access to underprivileged communities. So this is basically for the Just City Labs of Harvard Grad School of Design, and I'm providing you some example of these books. So, but it's provide basically a categorization, and this is a recommendation that I will give you. That we will discuss in the seminars is how we can create certain analysis of themes, and we categorize that between different types in order to create actions that we can do in order to increase access to everyone in the city. So they provide example that access to transportation through sustainable design, or access to landscape through regenerative ecology, and it provides specific examples about how to do it.
And this is one of the books that went by in a hurry, but this is another example of diagrams that were prepared for application in multiple cities.
Yeah, and if you can give me that. So if you see, this book is basically, this book is an update that Tony Griffin did about this book, just increasing the voice of justice in the pattern language. So how we can create patterns of interventions that includes more justice in the city. So I was saying access to landscape, access to decision makers, we will discuss that in week 4 when we discuss spatial democracy and participatory design, and access to dwelling through affordable housing, or access to urbanized land, inclusionary zoning. This is another spoiler. We will talk a lot about inclusionary zoning in week 6 when we talk about instruments of inclusionary zoning. Yeah.
What's the name of this book?
The book is Pattern Language. So you can see, if you look at the presentation, the source is here, and also I also providing here the link to download the book. You have specific examples. So, but at the end, or access to public space and having the eyes towards the street. At the end, one thing that is very, very important for this book is they are transforming restorative justice, right to the city into action. How? Because at the end, and that is the only answer that I have for these questions, is if you remember the first lecture by Robert, they have the idea of project that is determined by system, that is determined by culture. But if the culture determines the projects, also projects can change the culture. So at the end, Edgar Morin said that we are embedded in a culture, in a system that determines or regulates our interventions. But for the same reasons, our architectural projects can make big change, like happened in Curitiba, like happened in Medellin, to increase certain keys or certain interventions that reduce the cost of better cities and increase the benefit of certain cities. And this is what that book is about. So, yes, we're on time, the stage is all yours. So now, we're trying to finish 10 minutes early in order to wrap up the section and listen to our team to discuss what is missing. So you feel overwhelmed?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Who are overwhelmed here? It was too fast? Raise your hand. Okay, Flores.
Well, it's a big topic. It's hard.
It's a big topic, yeah.
I tried to note some things that relate to the questions that are on the board. You need to check my work to see if maybe we just go through the questions. You go through the questions and interrogate us. Yes, you guys stand up.
Oh.
Yeah.
You interrogate us.
I'm sure.
You can sit in front of us.
So I can call a friend.
Yeah.
There's no space.
Okay, we can get rid of, we can turn on the lights, get rid of the slides. Oh. My human rights have been violated.
I guess I'm just gonna go from what's just going to the top of my head right now. How to revitalize without gentrification. I feel like that one, in the case of Medellin, I feel like I didn't get as clear of a perspective as I wanted. I still feel a bit confused about that. I don't know if you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think in that case, it just opened up like another can of worms. It's like pretty. I guess it was just a little too vague. That it didn't really answer the question enough, which is how we got to here. And even then, when we got to this point, that wasn't answered either. It was kind of just.
So the reading, how about using the reading? One of the readings was about the High Line.
Yeah.
So use that to leverage the reading to say, hey, it's not that simple.
Yeah, and the same thing, I think we have to be like humble with certain questions.
Yeah.
So I have one experience. Let me use 2 minutes to explain this. So I was hired by the city of Queen, to lead a set of participatory design projects to renovate a street, Queens, New York. And one of the issues that we had trying to create new ideas to renovate that street in that specific district called Flushing, Queens, is that some of them say, we know what happened in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
When they renovated the city, people were displaced. And now there are fancy people living in Brooklyn and expensive restaurants. And I have to be honest, I didn't have an answer with that community.
Yeah.
Because one of the big problems that we're having here, and that's one of the big issues about our ideas as an architect, that many communities believe that if they renovate their neighborhoods, they will be displaced.
Yeah.
There is that relation. They know that. And for that reason, they prefer to have like sketchy house streets.
Did you see Shameless?
It's hopeless.
Shameless?
So I don't have the answer, and I want your support because I would have to, I didn't have the answer in that moment, yeah, Justin.
Yes. The question, how to revitalize gentrification. My thought is gentrification, they improve the neighborhoods. I think the government use private companies or organizations to gentrify communities, and in turn, they see profits to make that money. I think if the government or some entity now would improve the communities, but not take profits into consideration, because that's the reason why the rich goes into gentrified communities, because it has been renovated and they're the only one who can afford it. But if someone who renovated the community and keep the price at a minimum, then less fortunate could encourage gentrification.
Yeah, I agree, but the issue here is that I'm being like a devil advocate here for a second. Is that the renovation of the street creates value.
Yeah.
That's a fact. So when that creates values, that elevate the prices of the houses. So that's the core of gentrification.
But we can also have rent control and rent stabilization. Rent control is boom. This is the cap.
Yeah.
And then you have rent stabilization. Okay, boom. You can increase it 3% this year. If you want to increase it more, you got to ask permission. Rent stabilization. Since 1980, this culture of the United States has determined that government is the problem. We don't like regulation. We got rid of rent control. We got rid of rent stabilization. And now the market sets the prices. Unless you're willing to go back to a role for government in rent control and rent stabilization, this is the world we live in, baby. Suck it up. Unless there's more gentle ways to do it, like tax increment finance. Do you know this method? Tax increment finance says, we, the MBTA, are going to build a new station at Union Square in Somerville. And we know that this billions of dollars of investment is going to result in tens of billions of dollars of increased property value. Instead of us just paying this money through tax, federal, state, and local taxes, we're going to tax the increase of value. So when the value goes up, we're going to tax that increase in value so that it comes back and replenishes, it pays for the subway stop. And that way we can do it everywhere. If we didn't have just one new subway line every 4 decades, what if we had new subway lines all over Boston through a tax increment finance mechanism? All of a sudden, the gentrification forces are not all focused on Union Square, Somerville. The gentrification forces are dissipated throughout the city of Boston. And so no single neighborhood gets displaced more than the others.
So so now that this is important for everyone, I can promise that in week 7, when we talk about urban instruments, I will level up the volume of certain examples, especially in Latin America, I would say, that have succeeded in have urban renovation without gentrification.
So
that's a deal. I will do.
Who's team 7? Who's group 7? You guys need to make note of this and hold us responsible.
Yeah, please.
For promises.
Week 7, remember that question that week, because I think I can prepare myself to have some.
Yeah, tax increment financing. Explain yourself.
What else? So we have 3 minutes. So you can also say something that we did well.
You don't have to.
Or we did, when you say we, it's not only Robert and I think we are.
Yeah.
I think both of these, the section about access was pretty helpful. I think it helps. I think it's a topic that is one of the solutions to these answers, but that also, going into that also brings new questions, like how we were talking about, to provide more access. We need more infrastructure, but that creates more problems. So how do we provide more access in terms of policies and ideas instead of like straight bigger infrastructure?
Well, if you're saying problems of bigger infrastructure, I think you mean problems of bigger roads. Yeah, because other infrastructure reduces the problem of big roads. Some communities in the United States have gotten rid of big roads.
I wanted to mention, the topic of gaming the system. And when, it was one of the places I was talked about was, like bringing the kids in to do like the art, which, stop cars from going in. That's like, I think that was a pretty good example of gaming the system and like communities having a bit more power. In that scenario, the community had a bit more power than like the elites did. So like, that was like an idea of like, how could the community game the system so they can still achieve their ownership when it comes to whatever they want to do.
And your voices, yeah.
I think in terms of inclusivity and ownership and also staying focused on the community, I think a lot of reframing how things work and the benefits, like changing the perspective on how benefits can be implemented. I think that was very helpful.
So I have one comment, and this is my wrap-up comment. Is many of the questions that we saw in the discussions are how questions. How? Are how questions.
Yeah.
Which is good, but we have to be aware that the how questions, this is how we change the system, how we achieve authentic ownership, how to ensure inclusivity, how to stay focused. These could be answered only if we have why questions behind. This is my reflection. Why this is happening? If you understand why this is happening and why this is creating that level of, I don't know, gentrification, only the why questions can go to the how questions. My recommendation is that when you read a document, try to, or the readings, try to elaborate how questions, but also to come with why questions that can help us.
And similarly, in the same spirit, when you look at examples that you suspect have something to teach us, look at how they do what they do, and then look underneath the how at the why. Why is that effective? The why that's effective has to do with the powers, the unequal power embedded in the operating systems. How do the operating systems result in specific outcomes where the benefits keep going to those who already don't need it, and keep victimizing people who've been victimized historically for centuries?
So I want to thank and celebrate these ladies, so please give a hand to them. So they did much better than last week.
Yeah,
much
that was
better.
a little pathetic.
So you recognize that we are changing the system here. So we are doing something different. We are learning with you. So this idea that you start the class, I will sit there and you finish the class is something new for us as well. So help us to do that better. So next week, Group 9 will have even better ideas to improve this session. We are learning from everybody.
Thank you.